How the devil are you doing this fine day? Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And thank you to all those that have just joined over on Instagram. Good to see you all here. First week back, and we've made it all the way to Thursday. Not bad going, considering I was asleep for first half of the week. We've got another fun-packed show for you today, but I'm not going to dwell on that just now. I'll get to that in just a second. Instead, I want to look ahead to tomorrow's show. And I want to really gauge your thoughts on how tomorrow's show should look. Earlier in the week, you might recall that it was suggested that we do a chat-only show. In other words, dispense with all the usual video nonsense and just sit here and have a chat with some of you guys coming on the show as a guest. More than happy for you to do that. Failing that, I'll be happy to do the first part of the show as normal and then send out a link to see if anybody wants to join me and make a point or raise a question or whatever it might be. Let me know in the chat, would you like the usual format, which is going to be like today's show, or would you just like an all-chat show? Love to hear from you. Instantly, before we crack on, I do want to say a very quick few thank yous to those people that have chosen to become paid subscribers over on Demolition Insider. I've been absolutely blown away. I was expecting maybe one or two. We've had one. We've had way more than that. Obviously, the longer form articles are going down very well over there. So if you'd like to support that, you certainly can. Demolition Insider, go find it. It's easy enough. I also want to say a quick thank you to my mate Phil, Demolition Man Phil, who used our Buy Me a Coffee system yesterday to do precisely that. He bought me a cup of coffee. If you'd like to do that, you'd like to leave us a tip, if you like what you're seeing, like what you're hearing, please do so. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/Demolition News. Now, I'm going to throw over very quickly to the chat because I can see it's very busy. I want to say a good morning to a few people. Dan Cullen was here first off, I think. That's not Dan, that's Ken. There's Dan. There's Ken, who is getting the weather again down in Wales. There is our friend Gary Muirhead. Morning, Gary. Who else have we got here? I'm rattling through. Jim Turner is here. Chris Turner is here. What's Chris saying? Good morning to every man and his dog. Yes, particularly dogs. And stand by your beds, people. Andy Dalvell has returned. Good morning, everybody, from a very happy Demo Darv. Yes, Andy Dalvell, the Darvelous Andy Dalvell, is back in the Demolition fold, which is good news for all concerned. Let's have a look. Mark Whiting has just joined us. Ken Hatcher says, good idea. I'm not sure which is a good idea, usual format or the chat format, but maybe we'll do a mix of the two. Dan Cullen says he's living the dream. Well, I know the feeling. I'm doing exactly the same. I'm looking at the weather outside. It looks horrible, and I'm sat here in a nice warm office, not bothered about it at all. Right, people, shall we get started? I think perhaps we should. Right, just to clarify, Ken Hatcher has come back and he said he would, we're going to get the right button, he would prefer a chat show tomorrow. So if anybody else has got any thoughts on that, more than happy to do it. I can sit here, well, I don't need to tell you, I can sit here and chat for hours if needs be. Gary Muirhead, eagle-eyed, says there's a new light in the background. That one, it's not actually. I don't know if you can see it. It looks a bit blurry now, but if you remember in the run-up to Christmas, I had some fairy lights draped around the background to give it a bit of a festive feel. Now that Christmas is over, I've basically balled them up, stuffed them in a jam jar. That's the light. That's a bunch of fairy lights in there. If anyone cares to make the connection between fairy lights and the fairy in front of the camera, you feel free. Listen, I have thick skin. There is Dan Cullen saying good morning to the fabulous Andy Dalvell. Mick Saunders has joined us as well. Morning, one and all, from COVID Central. My bleeding luck. Yes, you know that COVID. Do you remember COVID that shut down the country for a couple of years? Well, that's gone away. Nobody's suffering with that anymore. Apparently. Right. Okay. It is time for me to actually start. So it is It is Thursday, the 11th of January. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, Takeuchi gets tough. We're scraping by with John Deere. We're in France for some fine French demolition, and we're taking a look at a Chinese-built dozer that might just surprise and impress you. Plus, moving house gets mechanized, which will make a whole lot more sense when we actually get to it. But first, we're going to peer back through the mists of time to see what was happening on this day in history. Yes, on this day in 1569, the first recorded lottery, British lottery, took place in the UK. The prize was drawn at St Paul's Cathedral, and the first prize was a staggering £5,000. £5,000 in 1569. You could pretty much buy the country at that point, I would have thought. In 1838, Samuel Morse demonstrated his Morse code for the first time. In 1922, insulin was used for the first time to treat diabetes. In 1999, comedian Jon Stewart, personal hero of mine, took over the reins of The Daily Show in America. And in 2007, author J.K. Rowling finished the seventh and final Harry Potter novel in a hotel room in Edinburgh. Hit the full stop and then went out and counted her millions, no doubt. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, I'm going to very quickly remind you of our question of the day. Yeah, our question of the day, quite simply, is this. What is the furthest you have ever been from home? Personally, mine would be Japan, possibly with Mexico coming in a fairly distant second. But what about you? How far have you strayed? How far from home have you actually been? Let us know in the chat. Love to hear from you. We'll come back to that at the end of the show. I said show. Let's start, shall we? I am going to get to the proper part of the show in just a second, but I'm going to respond to this one very quickly. Comes from Gary Muirhead. Another sad bit of news yesterday. TXM plant has gone into administration, and I can't remember the name of the company, but I had an email through from, I think it was Construction Inquirer this morning, to say that another company has gone bust in the UK industry as well. I'm going to say good morning to Andy Dyson. Andy says, our question today, for work purposes or pleasure? I'll take either. Either. We're not proud here, Andy, as you well know. But Andy, he also says, good morning. Good morning, Andy. Hope you had a good Christmas and a Happy New Year to you. Right. Now we've got all of that out of the way. You know that expression, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Well, as it turns out, Takeuchi is getting tough. Let's get going.
Toughness. You'd think it'd be cost of entry on any job site. A basic requirement. But if that were true, then what's the deal with things like error codes, detracking, or straight up breakdowns? Maybe it's time to kick the dirt off what toughness is all about. Toughness is withstanding non-stop punishment without a flinch, and turning the key in the morning ready for more. Digging and grading, loading and hauling, mulching, trenching, and demolishing with a smile, then asking if that's all you've got. Proven by Takeuchi, with a lineup built to crush the most extreme applications and environments, getting the job done right no matter what. Unrivaled performance, legendary dependability, toughness since day one. For those who value uptime above all, nothing else comes close. In fact, anything else is probably in the shop. Takeuchi, the mark of toughness.
Cracking film, I think you'll agree. I have to say, I've been very impressed with the latest iteration of the Takeuchi mini excavators. Saw them at Baumer, saw them again at ConExpo, looking really, really strong indeed. Anyone have any thoughts on Takeuchi equipment? We're not doing a hot or not because that wasn't a specific model, but if you've got any thoughts on Takeuchi, as I say, I think they are looking pretty damn splendid indeed, but love to hear from you. While you're thinking about that, I'm going to do this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Right. I'm fairly sure it is a sign of my advancing years, but I have a growing fondness for times gone by. I went to see ABBA, sort of, about a week or so ago. I'm now handwriting stuff. I even have an actual writing desk, and I'm fairly sure I'm going to be bringing the typewriter out of cold storage fairly soon. And maybe all of that is why I'm glad to see the resurgence of the scraper. And there's only one thing better than a scraper, and that's all. Quite why scrapers fell out of fashion, I shall never know, but I'm so glad to have them back. Now, if you could just bring back punk and ska music, Debbie Harry, bondage trousers, Debbie Harry wearing bondage trousers. If only. So, just to clarify a few bits and pieces before we go any further, I look a bit dark today. I don't know why that is. Yeah, no idea what's going on there. I've just had a message over on Instagram. K. Petrianakis, are you broadcasting to YouTube also right now? We are. We most certainly are. We're actually broadcasting to YouTube, to Twitter, to LinkedIn, and to 3 different pages on Facebook as well. And Ken Hatcher, I think, is playing silly buggers because Ken Diggerman 1969 has just turned up on Instagram as well. So I hope you've got the same as me, Ken. I hope you've got a dual screen operation going on. Impressed if you have. We aren't asking for votes on hot or not, but just want to throw that one up. Andy Darville says that Deere scraper and blade are hot. I totally agree. What have we got there? No, that we'll come back to that one at the end of the show. So where did we get to? Yes, I think we've done that bit. So, Mesdames et Messieurs, we're off to France right now for Le Grand Demolition. Sacre bleu and mon Dieu, I think you'll agree. That was pretty magnifique. Now I'm going to go back to Andy Delville. Says, Libya High Reach does it get any better? I think not. I think not too. I totally agree. Dan Collins says, look, some job, lovely High Reach. Totally agree. My other half and Gary Muirhead are chatting away amongst themselves, but I want to throw back to Mick Norton, who says motorized scrapers went out of fashion when the excavator dump truck combination became more efficient and productive as a combination over short and long haul roads. I maybe my memory is wrong. I kind of caught the tail end of scrapers. I don't mean the tail end of scrapers, but I caught the tail end of the scraper revolution, as it were. And they seem to the arrival of hydraulic excavators and articulated dump trucks seem to coincide with the completion of many of the UK's major motorways. So there was less work for them to do, and they weren't as good on the shorter haul jobs, and therefore they fell out of fashion. I think I've got my timing right, but I'm not absolutely sure. Jim Turner says, glad to see scrapers creeping back on trend. A Cat 666 is on the wish list. If I've ever got more money than is that, I can't actually see that. Croesus. John Bailey, who hi there from San Francisco, enjoying the stream. Well, hang on a minute, people. Stand by your beds. We've got somebody here from San Francisco. Who gets? John Bailey. When somebody arrives on the show for the first time, you get some welcome confetti. So, howdy. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and thank you for your kind words. I'm glad you're enjoying the stream. I am too, funnily enough. Ken Hatcher says, Lionel's got another one. I'm assuming he means Lionel Whitnell, and I'm assuming he means a scraper as well. Might have to have a word with Lionel. I haven't been actually on site with a scraper in quite some time. Now, while you're all thinking about that, I'm going to do this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
I was doing some research the other day. I know what you think, but these shows really don't just write themselves. I was looking at the biggest dozers that are currently commercially available. I realized we had the super dozer, but not commercially available. So I was looking at the ones that are commercially available. I already knew that the Komatsu D575 was actually the daddy of them all, weighing in at an astonishing 153 tons. I also suspected, and I was right, that the Cat D11 was second, weighing in at around 124 tons. But who do you think comes in third? Liebherr? Nope. John Deere? Nope. In actual fact, the third biggest is from Chinese manufacturer. Now, I've been saying all along that they're called Shantui. Apparently, they're called Shantui. And they make this.
The DH-20M is a hydrostatic bulldozer developed for a lower emission standard market that meets U.S. EPA Tier 4 final and European Stage 5 emission regulations. This bulldozer has obtained CE certification. This bulldozer has 3 operation modes, which can be selected by the operator through the intelligent monitor, and combined with a dual closed loop hydrostatic transmission system that delivers excellent performance. Powered by a Cummins L9 engine with DOC and DPF and SCR after-treatment system that provides strong and durable power. This 467-liter enhanced fuel tank, combined with a larger DEF AdBlue tank, enables this dozer to have a running time of 12 hours per usage. Based on most common usages, earth moving, slotting, spreading, finish grading, our engineering team designed standard mode and eco mode to meet all of your different job applications. In eco mode, you can conserve 7% of your fuel consumption compared with that of standard mode. The transmission system is a dual closed-loop hydrostatic system, so it has all the hydrostatic system features like steering with load, pivot turn, stepless speed adjust, and constant torque. Now, let's check out the undercarriage system. Standard self-lubricated track with single Grouser shoe, we have 610mm and 710mm wide shoes for XL and XW model. There are 8 track rollers on each side, one more roller than some similar sized dozers. That extra length brings better balance for the whole machine. Come and have a closer look at the track frame. It has this raise-up triangle design to reduce soil buildup here and the wear on the carrier rollers. Shantway Undercarriage is part of our Iron Fist product line. Now, we not only produce for ourselves, but we also produce for many other famous brands OEM. Perhaps some of your machines may also be equipped with an undercarriage from our factory. This machine has a 5 cubic meter power angle tilt blade. Some places also call it a 6-way blade. This is a super versatility blade with its ability to perform a variety of applications, such as material moving, slotting, and finish grading. Another key optional feature on this unit is foldable design. Both sides can fold back and reduce the width of less than 3 meters during transportation. We also offer semi-U blade, straight tilt blade, option for front, pull hitch, triple shank ripper, and hydraulic winch options for rear attachment. Our engineering team also designed some steps and handles to make the climb safer and easier. Now we're inside the cab. This is the blade joystick. It's a hydraulic pilot joystick. Controls the lift of the blade, it lowers the blade, controls the tilt of the blade, and the angle. It's very easy, very handy to use. Now, this is the travel joystick. It's an electric control joystick. It has integrated direction, steering, and fingertip speed adjustment function. The foot pedal has a brake and decelerate, 2 modes. If you push the pedal all the way to the end for 3 seconds, the parking brake will be applied automatically. The newly designed intelligent monitor is not only bigger than the previous model, but it's also smarter. Operators can access more parameters, settings through this 10-inch touchscreen. Selectable working mode, auto traction control rate, reverse mode, steering mode, self-calibration, self-diagnose, and optimized program. All those intelligent features make the work more efficient. Operators need to stay in the cab every day, so the comfort of the cab is definitely a key factor that our engineering team has always focused on. Pressurized cab integrated with FOPS, ROPS, large space, great visibility, excellent legroom, 8-vent air-conditioned system, 74 decibel noise level, air ride seat, ergonomic adjustable armrest, safety grab handles, LED lights, welcome light, rear view camera, USB charge port, Bluetooth radio, sunproof blind. It's all these small features that are purposely designed to help the operator feel more comfortable and enable them to better focus on their job. Serviceability. Very friendly design for daily inspection and maintenance. Valve group, hydraulic test port, DEF tank, window fluid tank, travel ECM, fuse box, and batteries. They're all easily accessible through the rear, right, and left service compartments. Customers could access the engine compartment light, gives better condition for engine inspection or service. All grease points are leads out at ground level. We hope you've enjoyed our presentation about the DH-20M hydrostatic bulldozer. If you have any further questions about this or any of our other fine products, please visit our website at www.shankwei.com. Choose Shankwei. Choose the future.
Now, you probably gathered that that wasn't the third biggest dozer in the world. In actual fact, the third biggest model is the Shankwei, apparently, SD90, which weighs in at 105 tons. I was hoping to bring you some footage of that, but all the clips I found are pretty poor quality. I am still searching. I know a couple of people have asked, and I can see that Gary Muirhead is one of them, have asked whether Shankwei are available in the UK. The easy answer is I'm not sure, but while you were talking or while that video was playing, I actually had a look online, and apparently there is at Company's House, there is a company called Shankwei UK. I've not seen any of their machines here yet, if anybody knows anything else. But at the same time as all of that was happening, over on Instagram, our friend Garvin over at Mostly Diggers says he's actually off to see a Shankwei dozer today. Now, Garvin does quite a bit of travel, so I'm not entirely sure where he is, so I will ask the question. But I did see while I was searching for Shankwei UK, apparently there is possibly a dealer in County Wexford in Ireland. It's possible that they're available in Ireland and maybe not in the mainland UK. But Garvin, if you are still paying attention, where are you going to see? I'm not prying. I'm not trying to steal your thunder. In actual fact, he's beat me to it. Goffs in Wexford in Ireland. There you are. Goffs in Wexford in Ireland. So if you'd like to know more about Shankwei, you can go to the Shankwei website. It's all translated into English. Very good. Surprisingly large range of equipment. And Garvin is also saying he reckons that they've actually sold some machines into the UK as well. So I was wrong, as is often the case. One thing that did come up while we were watching that was this. Mick Norton says, I see nothing revolutionary on the Chinese dozer that will put them ahead of the competition. I wasn't expecting to, but I do wonder about the price point. And also bearing in mind, we currently have an ongoing situation after a complaint from JCB about potentially illegal dumping of machines, i.e. selling them below market price to gain a foothold in the UK market. But as far as I understand, and certainly JCB wouldn't be complaining about dozers because they don't make them, I wonder what the price point of a Chinese-built dozer is. I would imagine an awful lot less than the Cat, Komatsu, or Liebherr equivalent. But it's a good point, Mick. Chris Ford says, hope it doesn't translate as shaft you. I'm fairly sure they would have checked, but who the hell knows? Yes, we'll crack on after that. That's it may well be. I pressed the wrong button there. It kind of reminds me of all those people that went and got themselves Chinese symbol tattoos, who they thought meant destiny or wisdom. And it turns out they said soup or something. But just going back to the dozer before I press the next button, having looked at it, if I took all those stickers off and took the name off it, would you have known that was Chinese built? Not sure you would. Right, let's have one of these. God,
if you would like to buy a limited edition Break Fast show sticker, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news/extras.
Yes, my buttons aren't working particularly well today. Now, when I think about moving house, I think about loading all of my goods and chattels into boxes, loading those boxes into a removal lorry, and then unpacking those boxes when I get to the other end of the new home. And I mean leaving one house and moving to another. But in some parts of the world, moving house means precisely that. You actually pick up your house and you take it with you, using, potentially, one of these. So that's the platypus. Who knew a platypus existed? That's one video. There are others. The quality wasn't quite as good, but they can actually pick up an entire house. I know that's only part of a house. They can pick up an entire house and transport it down the road. Just goes to show anything can be mechanized these days. Couple of points I want to pick up on. And we've had another message from Garvin over at Mostly Diggers, who says, what does he say? He says, the Shantway dozers are not cheap, but because they are still a big lump of metal and hydraulics, but definitely a reduced price in comparison to some others. Shantway manufactures a staggering volume of dozers for the global market. Yeah, I'm sure they do. And let's face it, the UK, tiny little island, hardly a big market for dozers anyway. But yes, let's have a look. Mick Norton says, Ford used to make a platypus dozer years ago. Did they really? Did I can sense another article coming on there. Now, just one other thing, and this is the kind of thing that I was kind of expecting to discuss on tomorrow's primarily chat show. Dan Cullen says, I'm the only machine working on site at the moment because the diesel hasn't showed up yet. Look, I realise that human error is a thing, and you know, I understand traffic delays and stuff like that. But in this day and age, one of the biggest frustrations in my life, and I can honestly say that I very, very rarely visit a McDonald's. But if you went into a McDonald's, and this has happened to me, and I found it incredibly frustrating, you go into McDonald's and you order your Big Mac and chips, or in my case, the chicken nugget and chips, and the guy or the girl behind the counter says, we haven't actually got any chips at the moment. You had one job. Let's be absolutely honest. 99.9% of the people that drive through the McDonald's are expecting to have fries with their meal, are they not? So you would have thought that fries, chips here in the UK would be a prerequisite. Much the same as Dan is saying there. As it stands at the moment, we have an industry that is 99.9999999% run on diesel. And sometimes people forget to order the diesel, or the diesel doesn't show up on time. This is an industry that has developed systems that can operate autonomously. We can move billions of tons of material using autonomous machines. We can power them using biodiesel. We can power them using electric. We'll soon be able to power them using hydrogen. And yet, in this day and age, 2024, I just checked, 2024, we still have sites at a standstill because some silly bugger forgot to organise the diesel. Chris Ford says, can you imagine the conversation? Could you move my house? Certainly, sir. Where is it? Just down the street in the middle of town. I just want to move further to the other side of town. Yeah, imagine that. And I imagine doing that to your neighbours. You know, when your neighbours have one of those really loud parties on a Saturday night when you could really do without it, and they wake up the following morning just to see you trundling your house away from them. Yeah, absolutely. Mick Norton, I tell you what, I'm going to come back to that. Because we do need to wrap things up. Because that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. But if you do have the time and the inclination, please stick around because the Craic will begin immediately after this final word from our key show sponsor. And just to those that are watching over on Instagram, you've got another 24 minutes of whatever the hell this is. So please stick around. Love to have your company. Wow. The buttons were playing silly buggers today. One of the problems I've got now, I tell you what, while I'm doing this, let me get some music going in the background because that's the point of the show that we're at. Let's have a bit of monkey trap, shall we? Oh, isn't that nice? Right. Yeah, one of the problems I've got is I'm operating on two screens now. I've got the main one, which is the camera there, and then I've got the other one over here, which is where the comments reside. The problem is, when I go over from one to the other, I actually have to click to say that I've landed on the new one. And then sometimes I don't. So when I'm pressing the buttons to flag up the new video or the next video, nothing happens, which is Very annoying, I have to say. Let's have a look. Just having a look to see if anybody I recognise over on Instagram. If anybody is watching on Instagram, please let us know where you're watching from, because I mean, we've got lots of people there, but I don't know where any of you are from. Dan Cullen once again took advantage of the fact that the comments open before the show opens, and actually said good morning everyone, and then he popped back immediately afterwards and said officially good morning to you as well, Dan. Thank you for being here. We'll come to your diesel issues in just a moment. Ken Hatcher is freezing his bits off down in Welsh Wales. Joe Brown Construction Company over on Instagram has just said good morning. Good morning, Joe Brown Construction LLC. I'm guessing you're in the States. Whereabouts in the States are you? Love to hear from you. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Gary. And good morning, gang. Gary Muirhead, good morning to you. Thank you for the additional. I may hold your latest question of the day in the archives, because I think I need the right day for that. But just to clarify, Joe Brown Construction are watching all the way from Philadelphia. I've treated Philadelphia unfairly. My wife took me to the States. We were supposed to be going to Maine for my 50th birthday, which is nearly 9 years ago now. And we arrived in Philadelphia in the midst of some terrible weather, and we were told that our onward flight from Philly to Maine wasn't going to take place. They advised against driving to Maine. And I sat there and thought, well, I'm here. What do we do? And it was a toss-up between, shall I stay in Philadelphia that I know nothing about, or should we jump on a train and go to New York? We went to New York. When I got back home and I said to my son, Fred, we left Philly to go to New York, and he said, you're crazy. Philadelphia's fantastic. I didn't know. Philadelphia, my apologies. The Joe Brown Construction Company, good morning. I tell you what, while you're here, let me give you a bit of well-deserved, there you are. If you are watching from Philadelphia, you most certainly deserve some welcome confetti. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, let me head back to the comments. How the bejesus are you on this fine, fresh day? I'm doing very, very well indeed. Woke up with a spring in my step this morning. Jim Turner says good morning as well. Chris Ford is still sitting on the fence somewhat. Goodish morning to every man and his dog. I don't know if you know this, but I do actually have two dogs. A pair of boxer dogs. One of them is still tucked up in bed with a blanket over him. Joe Brown Construction Company says, my treat for you and the wife next time. I'm going over to Skyscanner now to book my flights. Don't worry, I'm not that kind of guy, but thank you very much indeed for the offer. I'd love to get a guided tour. All I know about Philly is the cheesesteaks, which I love. I know nothing at all other than that. Dan says good morning to Ken. Andy Darvell is here as well, who is back for the first time since Christmas. And he says, Robin Williams style, good morning, everybody, from a happy Demo Darv. Yeah, and as I say, Andy Darvell is actually back in the Demolition fold, which is a fantastic thing, both for him and for the Demolition fraternity as well. Ken Hatcher wants tomorrow's show to be mainly chat. I think we can make that happen. Not a problem at all. Mark Whiting's in the house as well. Morning, Mark. And did I say Happy New Year to you yesterday? I think I may have done, but if not, Happy New Year. That's what we got here. New light in the background. Yeah, just to clarify that there, it's actually a jar of fairy lights. Doesn't look quite as good as I thought it did, actually. May have to have a bit of a play around with that. Let's have a look. Our friend Mick Saunders is currently laid up with COVID. You remember COVID? It's gone away now, hasn't it? Have you really got COVID, Mick? Are you that far behind the times? It was all the rage a couple of years ago, and yet here you are with it now. Who the hell? Let's have a look. Now, what is the furthest you have travelled from home? I've already said mine would have been Japan, which was I think it was about a 13-hour flight, direct flight, and it was really good. I mean, I have no issue with flying, but 13 hours you could probably properly get bedded in there. I think I did 3 movies, had a good old doze, stuffed my face with some very nice food, all good. But what's the furthest you've been? And I also went to Mexico, which is probably the second furthest I've been. But let me know, what is the furthest you've been from home? Ken Hatcher says, question of the day, Las Vegas. Fantastic place. If you're going to be a long way away from home, that's a good one to start with. There is sad bit of news from Gary Muirhead says TXM plant has gone into administration. And I know that Dan Cullen picked up on that. He says, wasn't TXM Bowsers and fuel tankers on HS2? Unbelievable. I don't know the answer to that, but if that's the case, that's going to be a major problem. Bearing in mind we were talking just a moment ago about the lack of fuel, could we see HS2 coming to a standstill because the Bowsers and the fuel tankers have all packed up and gone home? Love to hear about that. Who else have we got here? There's Gary saying good morning to my other half. Question of the day: the land down under for 3 months, and what a place it is, says Mick Saunders. It never been. And I blow hot and cold on this, to be perfectly honest. I don't think I would ever actually pay for myself to go to Australia. Not that I'm sure it's fantastic and I've got friends there and what have you. But no particular desire to go there, mainly because of the sharks and my fear. Even on land, I'd be terrified of great whites. But spiders, snakes, all of that kind of stuff. However, I know, and I don't know, I've not seen him in the chat this morning, but I know I've got a mate, Frank D'Angelo, works for a demolition company down under. He is currently the president of the New South Wales Demolition Association. They had a do just a couple of days ago. Yes, love to go and pay him a visit at some point, but somebody else would have to be paying. Andy Dyson asked, I asked a question of the day, he asked one back. Am I talking about work or pleasure? I don't care, either way. Jim Turner on our question of the day says, not far. I think the Peloponnese. Greece is about it. The Peloponnese is Greece? Is it? The Peloponnese, and I mean, I've heard the word the Peloponnese. I always thought that was somewhere in the South Pacific. It just goes to show, geography, not a strong point. I'm yet to find out what my strong point is, to be perfectly honest with you, but yeah, definitely not my strong point, that one. My other half, New Orleans or Barbados. Oh, I need a holiday, says the woman that had half a dozen last year. Yeah, New Orleans or Barbados, and she has the temerity to complain about how she's treated. That's not a bad life, in my opinion. Gary Muirhead went to New York. That was, what was that, a year ago, 2 years ago? 9.5 hours on the plane. Well worth it, though, isn't it? Got to say, I think I've probably done 7 or 8 states now. Would love to do some more, but I've got to say, New York absolutely blew my mind. Much in a different way, but much the same way as Las Vegas. Because I've seen it so much on TV, I landed in New York and half knew my way around. You know, I was turning the corner and thinking, oh, that's the Empire State Building there, but that's exactly where it should be, because I kind of know the geography and walking down Madison, it's a Kirsty MacColl song. Things like that. Love all that. Dan Cullen says, great bit of kit, the Takeuchi. I totally agree. Yeah, Listen, I used to do the PR for Kubota. Was a big Kubota fan, remain a Kubota fan. The Takeuchi in my head was always a bit of a second choice. Not any longer. Very, very good machines. Jim Turner says, I've no complaints about our old Takeuchi. If they're as good as the old ones, then they'll be brilliant. I think they're probably better, actually. The 8-tonner from Takeuchi outdoes many other brands. I think I've just about been, I can't actually remember how far away Japan is, but Mick Norton says, question of the day, he's been to the Solomon Islands in the Western Pacific, 9,250 miles away. Wow, that is a long way. And I would imagine not too many direct flights to the Solomon Islands from here, would be my guess. Gary Muirhead is talking to my wife, says, Jet2 have been emailing me every day with discount codes to book up for this year. Very tempted. Myself and my good lady have been talking about booking our next cruise. We do like a cruise in this household, and we've been on probably half a dozen over the years, and we are planning to do another one. And we were planning to actually book one during the Christmas break. Christmas break kind of came and went, and we still haven't, but we will be doing it. Andy Darvell says, now that Deere scraper and blade are hot. I totally agree. Chris Ford says, about 120 miles in the last 10 years. Prior to that, I took a load to the Isle of Lewis. Many years before that, Turin. I love Turin. I make no secret of the fact that I'd like to live in Italy. I really would. I'd struggle with the language, but I'd make do, and I'd get very fat, and I'd be quite happy with that. Mick Norton says motorised scrapers went out of fashion when the excavator dump truck combination became more efficient and productive as a combination over short and long hauls. Absolutely right. As I say, I caught the tail end of that. I was writing for Contract Journal and Plant Managers Journal and International Construction at the time that transition was taking place. And I know there were a few companies that clung on. I know Hawk Plants back in the day had a fleet of scrapers, and there was another one whose name has gone completely out of my head. No, can't remember. But I know there were a couple of sort of longer term fleets of scrapers here in the UK, but they did very much fall out of fashion. Gary Muirhead talking about the French demolition project. That would be a good project for Desplay. Top-down way system. Yes, it most certainly would. Speaking of top-down way system, I'm currently, I am going to be recording later today at some point the voiceover for another top-down way system film that my son Fred is producing. So keep an eye out for that. Andy Darvell enjoyed the French demolition project and says, leave our high reach. Does it get any better? I don't think so. I don't think so either. Should the planets align and I decide one day to run my own demolition company and money is no object, whose machine am I buying? Yeah, I'm going Liebherr or Volvo, and it'll be a close run thing between the two. Looks a lovely job and a lovely high reach. My wife is apparently now giving out life and travel advice. Gary Muirhead, just book it. Life's too short. Enjoy your holidays. I'm inclined to agree with that, mainly for the peace and quiet, but I'm inclined to agree with that. Glad to see scrapers creeping back on trend. A Cat 666 is on the wish list if I've ever got more money than Croesus, he says. Croesus, is that that sounds Greek. Need to go. I'm all about the Sisyphus and all of that kind of thing, but I don't know Croesus. I need to go and check. John Bailey, all the way from San Francisco, who has almost certainly got better weather right now than we have, says, hi there from San Francisco, California, enjoying the stream. Thank you very much indeed for that. And he's even got his sunglasses on, if you look closely enough. Ken Hatcher says, Lionel Whitnell has got himself another scraper. And there's John Bailey again saying, thanks for the welcome. You're very welcome to that welcome. Thank you for joining us. Gary Muirhead and my wife still continue their conversation. Yeah, definitely. There's no point being the richest person in the graveyard. Spend your money on a holiday. Quite right, too. Mick Saunders says, sorry, mate, listening to the post office inquiry, got a feeling this can of worms is getting bigger. I totally agree. And I don't know if anybody is paying attention. I'm going to be writing Monday's column probably tomorrow. There is now concern about the number of large panel system buildings that are still in use here in the UK. Now, obviously, we've had the debacle over the Craic crumbly concrete. We've also had the debacle over cladding as per the Grenfell Tower. But we're now talking about a large panel system construction tower blocks, or LPS, as they're also known. If that LPS or large panel system rings a bell, it probably should do, because that is precisely how Ronan Point was made. And if I remember rightly, I can't remember, was it 1970, 1969, something like that? Half of a tower block fell off at Ronan Point in London. And here we are, best part of 50 years later, and we're still talking about what to do with large panel system construction tower blocks. It seems to me, and I did mention this yesterday, and I'm going to come back to Mick Saunders' point about the post office yesterday. It does seem to me that we've gone from having leaders in this country to having followers. That rather than saying something like the Craic debacle, we are now aware that we've lots of this crumbly concrete in schools and hospitals. I have therefore set aside £1 billion to get it rectified, to make sure that schools or that school children and hospital patients don't have lumps of concrete falling on their head. Instead of which, we have an inquiry. We have an inquiry about the inquiry, and our Prime Minister says something like, when the inquiry is over, I will fully support their findings. do your job, mate. And here we are again. Now, and I realise our TV stations are full of this at the moment. But this business with the post office has been going on for more than 20 years. And the government and the post office themselves have done nothing. They've obfuscated at every available opportunity. And it's only when somebody runs a TV show based upon all of that that somebody says, I suppose we'd better do something about this then. Show some backbone, for the love of God, would you? Yes, he's not going to break it either. Number 4 is having some love and being put to work, and the new D8 is being loved at the minute too. The renovation will make a great article, Mark. I'm not really in the market of our articles anymore. However, if Lionel Whitnell would like to point a time-lapse camera at his renovations, I'd be more than happy to show them here on the show. Dan Collins says could easily mix up the Shantway dozer because it looks exactly the same as a John Deere and a Komatsu. Yeah, I think you're dead right. Are they available in the UK? Apparently, listen, I know Garvin very well, and Garvin is dead reliable. If Garvin says they are available here in the UK, they are available here in the UK. Haven't yet seen one, but I'm sure he wouldn't be wrong. And I'm just going to say very quickly, we've got about 5 minutes left on Instagram before the Instagram feed shuts down. So just be mindful of that. If you've got any questions over on Instagram, please let me have them in the next 5 minutes or so. Very informative video. There's Gary Muirhead saying, are they available in the UK? Yes, apparently they are. I'm not sure if we've actually got a UK dealer. As I say, Company's House has a company called Shantway UK registered, much the same as we had with XCMG a few years ago. XCMG UK was registered a good 3 years, I think, before we actually saw them at Plantworks in the middle of last year. Maybe Shantway are doing the same, but they do have representation over in Wexford in Ireland, a company called Goffs, GOFFS, if you're interested. Nice piece of kit. If the build quality is there, it could do well. It could do well, particularly if the price is right. Gary Muirhead. Ruth Anthony says, Gary Muirhead, yes, treat your wife. She deserves it, like all wives. How do I go about blocking somebody? No, I'll have to do some homework. She's starting to get on my nerves. Hope it doesn't translate as shaft you. Wouldn't it be fantastic if it did? Gary Muirhead with not the question of the day, but certainly a question of the day. Does that dozer come with free prawn crackers? Wouldn't it be great if it did? My dogs would be delighted. Both of my boxer dogs love anything crispy. They absolutely love a poppadom. Our dogs are not particularly beggy. They're quite big and they love their food. When the big one goes about the best part of 7 stone these days. He's a big lad, loves his grub, would never ever steal food. Apart from poppadoms and prawn crackers. You daren't keep a poppadom or a prawn cracker about your person because he'll have it away. So yes, free prawn crackers. My dogs will be delighted. And there we are. There's Dan Cullen, the only person working on his site because the diesel hasn't turned up. We have committed billions of pounds to build a railway from London to Birmingham. We were supposed to be going further, but we're building this multi-billion pound railway, futuristic railway, high-speed rail network. We're in an industry that can't actually remember to get the diesel in place in time. Mick Norton says, how confident would it be if Horizon provided all the technology for excavators? Yeah. And I listen, just a very quick point on that. I wonder, I mean, bearing in mind that we've already said, or Garvin said about the number of machines that Shantway build, and they also mentioned the fact that they are building undercarriage parts for other people as well. I wonder if there is actually any Fujitsu tech in excavators or construction equipment at the moment. I wouldn't be at all surprised. Chris Ford says, when I started construction, I was advised I would be working with some of the lowest intelligence in the world. However, I didn't realise there were so many in management. Yeah, ain't that the truth? We're really on the countdown over, excuse me, Here's an interesting one. That is our friend Garrett Wolfwelden, 69. Furthest I've been from home was South Carolina. South Carolina. And again, I went to New Orleans. My wife has already mentioned it just before we got married. Went to New Orleans, and we were in a bar one evening talking to one of the bar staff. And she said, where are you from? We said, the UK. And she said, you've travelled all this way. What are your plans? And the people we were with said, we're travelling. We're doing all these states. We've done about 20 states. We're hoping to do about 30. How many states have you done? And she said, 1. She'd just been to her own home state. Having said that, if I lived in America, would I travel outside of the state? Maybe not. Maybe not. Going back to the question of the day, how far have you travelled? Switzerland, Germany, Italy, Russia. You've been to Russia. I've never been there. Mick Saunders says, yes, mate, was at the doctor's for blood testing. It's a bad cold you got. Let's test you. Oh, blast. You're positive, he says. So got politely asked to sling my hook back home. Yeah. And yet, masks. Who needs masks these days? Dan Callan says, bloody phones not stop ringing. Frustrating. So many ops looking for jobs. Unbelievable. How many are looking for jobs? And I see only a fraction of the true impact. Chris Ford says, if I ever get a passport, I have a friend in Canada. I might just be tempted to go and see him, but never had one. There's lots of places I've never been to here in the UK. Listen, I'm exactly the same. There's lots and lots of places over in the UK that I'd love to go and have a look around. Never got around to it. Who's got the biggest fleet of scrapers in the UK? Good question. I don't know. If ITV did a show reflecting injustices of Didcot, would it get the government, HSE, and Thames Valley Police arses into gear? No. I don't think it would. I am going to say a very quick goodbye to everybody over on Instagram because you're about to cut out, and for that I apologise. Unfortunately, we're only allowed an hour over there. But thank you very much indeed for being here from wherever you are in the world. Now I can concentrate over here because they're going away. In fact, I tell you what, let me draw that to a close. Yeah, I wonder who has got the biggest fleet of scrapers in the UK these days. But yeah, again, I'm funnily enough, one of the things on my to-do list, and I'm going to be doing that today or tomorrow, depending how my diary pans out. I'm going to drop a line to the Commissioner of the Thames Valley Police and see if he would be willing to do an interview with me. My guess is he will probably say no. But we are now, what are we? 5 weeks away from the 8th anniversary of the Didcot disaster, and nothing whatsoever. And unfortunately, just going back to that point that Mick Norton has just raised, the problem with these things is they tend to be retrospective. If you've seen the various documentaries and dramas, series, or dramatisations rather, of things related to the Hillsborough disaster, they tend to be done in retrospect. And I mean, even if somebody were to start the research into a show on Didcot now, and by the time they've got the cast together and got the funding together, we'd probably be at 9 or possibly even 10 years. So I'm not entirely sure it would help anyway. Mick Norton says, Mick Norton, there is someone looking into the idea, but as he said, no one is answering any questions. He is putting up on all sides. Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, I've spoken to three researchers, but I think it's for 2 different proposed TV shows on all things Didcot. But they are all sitting on their hands. Until, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I mean, I have spoken to a couple of the families of the guys that were killed at Didcot, and I have proposed the idea of doing a book. The problem is I can only write the first 95%. I can write about what happened on the day. I can write about what happened in the months and years after that. But we don't actually have a close. We don't have an ending. Until that ending is there, we don't really know quite where it's all going to land, to be honest. Gary Muirhead on another protracted one. What's happening with the CMA investigation? It's all gone quiet. Yeah, it has all gone quiet. My understanding is most, if not all, of the 10 companies that were found guilty of bid rigging and price fixing have now paid their fines. I'm getting calls, I wouldn't say on a daily basis, but I'm getting calls on a fairly regular basis to say that there are further investigations going on. Not, as far as I can make out, not linked to the previous one. I think this sounds like a fresh investigation. Again, I've got no evidence of it, but that's my understanding. But if I were the CMA, having found so much low-hanging fruit and having knocked on a few doors and come away with 60 million quid's worth of penalties, would I be looking to pay Demolition a visit again? I think I probably would. Dan Cullen says, talk about Hawks on a big job in Cambridge when they went bust overnight. All the operators landed in work and Litch took all the operators on the day, saving the guys. I always had respect for them as a result. Yeah, I do remember that. It was a big deal. I mean, Hawk plant used to be bloody massive. I just had on the tip of my tongue then Blackwell were the other company I was trying to think of that ran scrapers. Don't know if they still do. I haven't heard of Blackwell in years, but yes, that was the other company I was trying to think of. I think that will do us. I do need to go and deposit my wife over at my daughter's house. She's going for an afternoon of playing with the grandchildren while I'm back here writing and stuff. So, John Jones. That name rings a bell. I've known two John Jones, and I'm trying to place them. Was John Jones at Blackwell? Fairly sure there was a John Jones at HM plant, or I may have imagined that. See, that's the problem with aging. See, it all becomes a bit of a blur after a while. Anyway, as promised, I'm going to be back here tomorrow. What I'm going to do, I'm going to have on standby a bunch of videos. I've already got some content for tomorrow's show anyway, but I will do a bit, and then we'll see if we can have a bit of a chat. And one of the things, and I'm looking specifically here at Mick Norton and Mick Saunders. I'm not being pro Mick at all, but both of you guys are of the right age. I am working on a series of short stories. I'll tell you now, the short stories are all under the title of The Time-Travelling Demolition Man. Never mind how the setup works, because I'm not even bothered with that, to be perfectly honest. But imagine, and I'm using round numbers here, imagine you could reach back into the past exactly 50 years, grab a hold of a demolition man from 1974 and haul him into the current day. Now, I'm not going to dwell on what he would make of an iPhone or the internet or live streaming or electric cars. People have done that and they've done it much better than me. What I'm talking about is if you took a demolition man by the scruff of the neck from 1974 and plonked him on a demolition site here in the present day, 2024, what would he make of it? Now, I'm doing some of it with tongue-in-cheek. So I'm things like, you could take a guy from 1974, possibly with 20 or 30 years experience, plonk him on a site here in the present day, and he would be immediately ejected because, well, frankly, a donkey jacket doesn't cut it anymore, and he hasn't got a card. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for. So if you've got any suggestions, Mick, I'd love to know what you've got to say. As I say, I've written 3. I'm about to write the 4th this afternoon, and I've got an idea for the 5th one as well. All of which, I'll put them over on our Demolition Insider at some point in the future. But if you've got any suggestions, let me know. You know where to find me. That should just about do us. I'll be back tomorrow for lots of chat. When I start the show tomorrow, I will be dropping the link so that you can join us on the show. I'll also try to remember to drop it in the WhatsApp group as well. So rather than having to take it down manually, if you just go to the WhatsApp group, you will be able to press the button and you will be able to join us on the show if you wish. You'll actually be sat here or there, one of those. You'll be sat here on the side of me, and we can have a chin wag. Arrive with questions, arrive with complaints, arrive with gripes, arrive with suggestions, or just pitch up and we'll have a chat. Don't care. We'll be guided by you. Mick Saunders just said, okay, I will take you up on that. Thank you very much indeed. Andy Darvell is on his way out. Have a good day, guys. Stay safe. Good idea, Andy. I'll see you all tomorrow for a lot more chat. Till then, everybody, have a fantastic day. All the best.